One of the things I want to talk about the game last night, and I actually watched it as a fan for like the first time
It's a good feeling.
in a while.
good
Like I
feeling.
went out with Barry and
Oh, fun.
Saints Ravens, right? So we went out there, and
Well, that's awesome.
he was down bad. Yeah, he was. It was real bad when I was saying to Billy here that the Saints had like 146 total yards. The Ravens had over 150 just rushing yards. I was like, this is bad. The poor man was so down bad watching Kenyon Drake just absolutely churn through the Saints defense. I was just like, imagine if it was Gus, like a healthy Gus.
This Drake stuff is weird because I remember the first couple of weeks of the season, he had a really good role, like when Dobbins was out and Gus was out, but he was just total trash. Like he couldn't get anything going at all, and I thought he was fully washed at that point. Like the fact that he's come back and now all of a sudden been quite serviceable is remarkable.
Yeah, it's been a weird trend. It also just feels like this is what Kenyon Drake always is. You can never, like, he is never played on weeks when he is good. Like it felt like for years we were like, oh, Kenyon Drake, he's going to get the chance in Miami. He's going to go to Oakland at the time, or I guess it was Vegas already. Drake, he's going to get the chance there. It feels like he's just perpetually like a round 5 to 10 pick and never pays off on ADP.
And he was the RB4 on the week. Like, it's crazy. He even caught 2 passes. I only tell you, I've never been happier to see Lamar Jackson just check it down like the couple of times he had it to Drake. And one of the most tilting thing, look, we always say the home league matters the most. Okay, the last 2 weeks in the home league, I have now lost consecutive games in the home league for the first time since 2019. Okay, so let that sink in. So frustrating. And I have lost these games by a combined 15 points or less. I am livid. And then there's the one play, Jackson to Drake, where Drake went out at the 4. If they could have just connected on that play, I win the game. But no, I lose by 7 points. You're muted.
Jacob, you're muted.
Hate when I do that. Sorry. So anyway, I'm like, I had totally given up. Honestly, I'd given up hope on the Scott Fish Bowl just in general a few weeks ago after Javonte went out and I had a couple of other bad injuries. My team just isn't good. But then suddenly we've gone on a 6-game winning streak here, in terms of 3 straight against the opponent and the median. And I'm pretty sure I've been 6th out of 12 in each of those. So I am squeaking by the median with the bare minimum. But this week I was projected to lose by 25 going into Monday night.
Yeah.
I didn't even check. What I needed to win was Kenyon Drake to outscore Isaiah Likely by 17, and he outscored him by 17.2. And and it took me. I thought I was 0-2 for sure. Not only did I squeak past for the win, but then I became the 6th highest scoring team, and then my opponent was the 7th. So I went from 0-2 to 2-0 to just stay alive by my absolute just the sliver. So that was absolutely hilarious. I couldn't believe that Kenyon Drake accomplished that.
Yeah, I had a beauty in my work league. I needed Kamara to not outscore Likely by 14. And I rolled in, and I was like, I hate that line because it's just enough that barring Likely, catching 3 touchdowns, that line is always surmountable with Kamara. He could just get a handoff after a kick, and that's 15 points right there.
Yeah.
So the entire game, I was sitting there just going, here comes the one. And surprisingly enough, Likely outscored Kamara. So good moments. Felt good.
It's just a wild game too. That Duvernay had 1 touch. I thought that was weird. Deshaun Jackson sacrificed his hamstrings to run 1 good route. It was just a super weird game. Lamar Jackson missed 2 wide open, 20+ yard touchdown passes that also would have won me the week. But I mean, I'm not bitter. Not at all. I'm just, I'm annoyed, but hey, 86 rushing yards for Lamar Jackson. The best part about Lamar Jackson at the end of the game is they were like, we could either ground this clock down by letting our running back take it, or we could just run Lamar Jackson 4 straight times up the middle. Fuck protecting him. Like, screw this. We're just gonna run him up the middle like he's a fullback or something. And Jacob, you're muted again, by the way. Just before you start talking.
I was just listening to you.
Okay, I was gonna say before it looked like you were gonna start.
I'm recording this podcast with my dad listening to, I believe, Rush, and he thinks that his headphones are a lot quieter than they actually are. So I can hear like every single lyric, but I just wanted to not. I wanted to not share that all of the Rush like faint ambient noise for our listeners. So I decided to mute myself when I'm not speaking and unmute when I am speaking.
That's hilarious.
Lamar being out there felt a lot like Tua coming back and being like, yeah, it's made me really reevaluate how I'm going to play the game. Then, like, the second drive he's in there, he's headbutting dudes and, like, QB sneak.
It was just funny the way they were just like, fuck this, we're not losing this one up by 10. Like, there's no way. And they just ran him straight up the middle. They're like, nope. Whoa, man. I'm gonna be very sad if he leaves, but I think he knows. He knows what they need to do. Just a crazy game last night. I mean,
but you don't think they would just let him fully walk, right? Like that would be
they'll franchise tag him this year, no matter what.
Like I feel like the way to go with Lamar is like you franchise, like even if the Ravens have decided that they like don't want to extend him long term. I mean, just letting him like walk would be just catastrophically bad organization management. Like, I feel like you have to franchise tag him and then work out some sort of sign and trade deal.
The problem is he's already said he won't play under the franchise, and he's the type of guy that I fully believe that he would.
I believe him, but I mean, but just to be able to maintain leverage, like you put out the franchise tag, and then you just go like even if you decide like we're not going to give into your contract demands, like to me, you just you do the franchise tag. And then you go to Lamar and you say, okay, we're franchise tagging you. Don't worry. You're never actually going to have to play on this. You don't have to sign it, whatever. But we're just franchise tagging you for now. And then we're going to work out a deal with a team that is willing to give you everything that you want. And then, you do the sign and trade. So whatever, you figure out the team and then you sign them, and then you get your 3 first-round picks, whatever. He goes to the other team. He gets whatever he wants and you get everything else. I mean, letting him walk and then not getting whatever a team would be willing to offer in terms of draft compensation would be senseless. But I think it's possible that they do trade him. I mean, who knows, right? Maybe if they think that their system, if they think it's better off that they go with Huntley or whatever else, but add a bunch of draft picks. Who knows?
If they pick Greg Roman over Lamar Jackson, I'm gonna fucking scream. I'll scream. Watching the broadcast and hearing Troy Aikman and Joe Buck give that man credit for just getting people to line up somewhere, just like it's the most infuriating thing I've ever heard. I can't do it.
Sometimes you look like a young Greg Roman.
Oh, you're done. You're done. You're done. This show's over. This has been great, everyone.
Can we get Tom? Can we get Greg Roman?
Thanks, everyone. It's been a great time. It's been a hell of a show. I'm never coming back. Get my razor. It's coming off on air. No way.
Because we do need to go live. We're almost 10 minutes of just talking. Dream Lamar Jackson spot.
Oh my
when
God.
He's gone.
Unbelievable.
The Atlanta Falcons would be my dream spot. I mean, could you imagine this Arthur Smith offense with Lamar? I mean, that would be a blast.
Give me the Giants.
Dabble would be great. If I had to really pick,
outside the Ravens, you can't do the Ravens.
Send him to Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. Trade him for Trey Lance and whatever first round picks they want to move. There you go.
You know what I love about the Falcons is like. The one thing Lamar will always do, you'll throw the ball to the tight end.
You know
Lamar
what?
Jackson to throw the ball to the tight end.
That's fine. I like that.
Kyle Pitts, tight end, one with 38,000 points per game. Unbelievable. All right, let's get in. What's up, everybody? This is a victory Tuesday for Baltimore after playing on Monday night. If you want to hear a little bit of Lamar Jackson contract discussions and how important home leagues are, you got to go to YouTube and you got to hit subscribe, because to start the shows, we give bonus content to our YouTube subscribers at the start of every show that will not be available on the podcast version. Sometimes it's strategy, sometimes it's straight up tilting. This week, it was a little bit of both and some fun destinations for Lamar Jackson if it's not Baltimore, and some heinous comments made by Billy and Jakob about my looking like Greg Roman. You're not going to want to miss that.
I did not say a thing.
I was going to say, how did Billy get looped into this?
Yeah, catching the strays down here.
Hey, Billy, there's no such thing as an innocent bystander, apparently.
He laughed, okay? And that counts. That's death. That's guilty by association in my count. He did not stand up for my virtue, and that hurt me deeply.
Hey, that's y'all's beef. That isn't me.
I'll never forget it. Look, this is the Full Tilt Podcast Network. This is the flagship program, the Full Tilt Dynasty Podcast. This is episode 178. We're coming up on 180, kind of wild, of the network. We love that. We are powered by Fantasy Points, and we are partnered with Underdog Fantasy. You're going to want to go to Fantasy Points and Underdog Fantasy and sign up. If you go to Underdog Fantasy, use promo code Full Tilt, they will deposit match you up to $100 on your first ever deposit. Free money to play with. Hey, you can win money with us. What did we say? PJ Walker under his passing yards. Gabe Davis took the under. We took all unders.
Ellinger under.
Yes, absolutely. And we crushed it
last week.
Yes, we crushed this last week. If you played with us, you won money with us, and that's what we love to hear. We win and lose together. Of course, joining me as always, the man that made me go back and change all of our graphics because he decided to yeet his tag on Twitter. It is now at Jakob Sanderson. Much love to you. And also joining us, one of the biggest brains. Some may call him the brain to people's pinky when they try to take over the world. It is at Big Billy FF, one of the smartest men alive. We are here to talk some fantasy football. We are also here to talk about one of the most insane press conferences I've ever heard in my fucking life. It sounded like Jim Irsay was your whacked out uncle with conspiracy.
Yeah, he's the guy that you invite to Thanksgiving but hope doesn't show up.
Right. He talks
like,
about.
I have to invite Grandpa, but
talks about how he lines his hat with tinfoil so the government can't read his mind. Like it was wild. We're going to talk Najee Harris potentially getting benched. We are going to talk about some quarterbacks being, well, let's face it, washed at this point. Some fun analogies. Can't wait for that. And of course, our player picks, our waiver wire game. Crazy show. I just want first thoughts from the weekend. We're going to start it off this way. First thoughts from the weekend. Jakob.
Well, my thoughts are that we're in the upper quartile of the top quartile of that upper quartile of podcasts. And I'm very happy to be with you all. I mean, obviously my thoughts have to be primarily with the Colts.
Crazy.
Just a ridiculous turn of events. Like, I mean, given what happened it's been pretty clear, honestly, since like game 2 that this season was not going to be a banner year. And the Colts have lower standards for their banner years than any other team in the NFL. But there was still not going to be a banner this year.
I don't know about that. They're one of the winningest franchises since 2000.
I mean, the proud owners of an AFC finalist banner. But we were not going to be doing much this year. That being said, so the firing of Frank Reich was not a massive shock, especially after what had already transpired with benching Matt Ryan and continuing to lose. I mean, it was an embarrassing loss this Sunday. I didn't watch a second of it, thank God. What happened after that was extremely surprising. I mean, my initial assumption, I didn't think that Frank Reich would get fired mid-season. I thought that just based off of the length of his tenure, and in my view, what is a roster primarily wronged by the actions of the general manager, Chris Ballard, I thought that they would both be promptly fired at the end of the year because nobody ever fires a GM in the middle of the year, really. And then when they fired Reich, I was like, well, that's strange. But I guess I'll just appoint somebody, they'll bring somebody up and then they'll fire Ballard at the end of the year. I did not expect and did not like the show of unity between Irsay and Ballard, guaranteeing that Ballard would be back next year. And then bringing in Jeff Saturday to come in and coach the team, who, by the way, I don't feel bad for him because he said yes, and surely he knew what was going to be online. It's not his fault.
You got to take that.
Saturday is an absolute legend, Colts legend, football legend. Incredible. Probably one of my 10 favorite players of all time. He's not an NFL coach. he's never even been a college coach. So certainly I was absolutely stunned to see that hire was made. I think the more stunning aspect to me was that, this feels like a hire that's made in mind with the idea of potentially keeping Chris Ballard on as GM. And the press conference was absolutely ludicrous.
We're going to get into that. I got something funny.
Yeah, so I don't need to go down that road hole. But yeah, that was, my biggest takeaway is just what an absolute clown car of an organization. And I guess the fantasy-related takeaway is I have no clue what you're supposed to do with Jonathan Taylor right now, because I was in the Bulletproof Discord, and we were talking about potential JT deals. And I was like, I don't know what appeal he has. And I later had to clarify. I was like, it's not that I don't think that he's appealing as like a player. It's that we're at the time of the year now where generally trades aren't made usually on player preference as much. People are making a trade with an action in mind. It's either I'm playing for now or I'm playing for next year. And usually trades are one of the former and one of the latter getting together and figuring it out. And I don't know what side of that equation you could trade for Jonathan Taylor now, because he, to me, is kind of looking like last year Barkley in a scenario where, taking the long view, I'm still really in on the player. He's fantastic. He's not that old. He's probably going to be phenomenal next year and going forward, but he's now up to 2 ankle injuries on the year. He's on a tire fire of a team with no O-line, and a team that, is committed to him more than they are committed to trying to win this year. So, remember last year, Barkley got back out there and he was playing, but he just looked like a shell of himself, and he was playing half the snaps. I could easily see that being the case for Taylor the rest of the season. And so if I'm trying to win now, I'm not trading for Jonathan Taylor. I have no idea if I can rely on him to provide anything near the production of his cost. I'd rather pay less and just go get one of the old fogies. And then if you're rebuilding, it's are you gonna make your rebuild trade for a year 4 running back? I don't know. I think it's worth doing if you get a discount, because he's gonna be worth more when he's healthy. But I don't know what type of player is, what type of dynasty manager is eager to trade for him at the moment.
It's tough. We were talking in the Full Tilt Discord about is JT worth it? And the only thing I could think of is I'd kind of rather just pay less and go get Miles Sanders right now, because he's a good player and also in a good offense, and I can see their production being damn near similar come the rest of the season. Because you're right, the Colts are an absolute dumpster fire, and it's horrific. It's painful. Their game last week was, I'm sorry to say, Jacob, one of the worst things I've seen since Kyle Bowler stepped on the field. It was just it was atrocious.
Yeah, the difficulty with Taylor is, 90% of his ability comes from being this significant workhorse back. If all of a sudden he comes back and he's not getting 22 carries a game, he's getting 14, 15, it just cuts his value down significantly.
Right. And it would be insane to give him more than that. As a person who rosters Jonathan Taylor in Dynasty, I hope they give him 30 carries a game and ride him. But as a person who roots for the Colts and roots for Jonathan Taylor, that would be organizational malpractice. There's no you're gonna give him 25 carries, but you're 3-7. It's insane.
Yeah. Well, the only other thing, and this is something I actually saw online. So Parks Frazier is now the play caller, and I don't need to shout out, but shout out Rich Eisen, because I think he had the best breakdown of Parks Frazier and his reputation within the franchise. How Frank Reich said he was the first person he'd go to anything. He was, suggested by other coaches as soon as Frank Reich got the job. He's very well thought of within there. And a lot of people say, well, he's 30. And even Rich Eisen, very smart football individual, has been around the fucking block, said that even he doesn't care about age anymore, because look at all the young quote unquote offensive geniuses there are. If I'm Parks Frazier, I want to get the ball to Taylor every second of the game to try to keep this job next year, or to even prospect for college jobs next year. So you have that. I think the problem is going to be Ellinger. You can't there's no upside to the offense to the point where I'm trying to yeet Michael Pittman Jr. as often as I can at this point, even though, right, if you go to keep trade cut for your value, it kind of hasn't caught up to what's happening in Indy right now. And I'm trying to get rid of him, but there's not a lot of hope here with any scenario. So you're right. I have no idea what to do with Taylor, but
Jeff Saturday and Parks Frazier against each other would be a world-class 1990s boxing match. Those are two phenomenal names.
I actually love that. I want to play a little game with you here, Jacob. I'm going to give you a quote from Jim Irsay, and I just want you to tell me if he said it or not. So,
that's a good game.
Okay,
yeah,
let's give this one. I have a photographic memory for numbers.
I think that Jim Irsay did not say that.
He did say this. Yeah, that is an actual quote from Jim Irsay. Okay.
Okay.
Billy, feel free. You're in on this too.
All right.
I can't believe that one wasn't even. I can't believe I didn't see that one tweeted out already. He just.
All right. This was not from the. I'll say this is not from the press conference. These are just Jim Irsay quotes.
Oh, these are just things he said. Okay.
I was about to say this seems like it would be a lot easier if.
Yeah,
it was
these are just things that they said.
I thought this was just from the press conference. All right. Okay.
I'm just trying to avoid any future surgery. I'm just trying to stand up straighter, and the hip and back are better.
That sounds like something he would have said. I think he's had some
Did?
surgeries.
Okay, I'm throwing a few test ones out there, before we get into the really absolutely outrageous stuff. So this one I really like. I lost it. All right. Did Jim Irsay say this or not? I leave a $100 bill and a note to the housekeeper at every hotel I've ever been in. It's important to write that they're recognized and appreciates. It gives us good juju on Sunday.
There's no chance that you came up with that on your own. And if you did, I'm extremely impressed. So I'm going to say that it's Jim Irsay.
Jim Irsay did say this. And I absolutely could not believe it. Give me one more second. I'm sorry, I have way too many tabs open.
Know that life.
Like, it's one of those things where I really wish that I didn't have to completely manipulate my monitors. And of course, my all-time favorite. And so those are the three that I could find. But I want to talk about some of his quotes from yesterday, because once I went down this rabbit hole, I typed in Jim Irsay quotes. Those other ones popped up, and I was like, I gotta ask Jacob if he remembers this. But I want to talk about this one. I'm glad he doesn't have any NFL experience, he says, because coaches go to the analytics and they come back scared. Jacob, the expression on your face says enough, but I want to talk about this one specifically because we all get annoyed hearing how it's talked about by broadcasters every fucking week. And then you get this quote. He's not scared, Jacob. He doesn't have the fear of analytics.
I just I want to know how when you say a word so many times and it loses meaning.
Yes.
Like if I was if I was to be like tipple, and I said it like 100 times, like all of a sudden it would just start to just become like an amalgamation of sounds. Like when did analytics just become such a boogeyman stand-in? It literally just means using numbers to make decisions. And it feels like between broadcasters and some coaches and some football commentators, whatever, it's somehow taken on this abstruse, terrifying meaning where it's the analytics. And I don't understand. There's just these certain people, it's they've just replaced any grievance that they have about football aspects of their lives where it's it's the analytics' fault. And I find it so entertaining. If it was any other team's coach or GM or owner who said this, I would have been in tears laughing, and instead I was just in tears crying because that's my team. But yeah, just an absolutely absurd quote that it was just I need to get someone without experience because the problem is that these people with experience, they just knuckle under to pressure. They're so fearful. They just go by the numbers. it's also just obviously not true. Like the way that football is talked about in any sort of broadcast medium is like filled almost entirely with people who don't understand analytics and don't like analytics. Like, when do you ever turn on a broadcast and it's like a bunch of data nerds like me, like chastising a coach for not using the analytics? Never. Right. So it's like, imagine watching Brandon Staley like get absolutely, and John Harbaugh get like lit up on like every CBS post game show last year for going for it. Everybody's like, these kids and their analytics and their knives. And like, so the idea that like people are giving into analytics out of fear is like just absolutely absurd, but it's like quite literally the opposite.
Yeah. It absolutely. It seems like people just, there's some level of misconception somewhere. I don't know if it's announcers, coach, someone isn't understanding either how they should be used or how they are being used. Like I understand the statement and saying, like, I want someone who is removed from it so that they don't feel like that like has to be the choice every time.
Yeah.
Like I understand that statement. But if that's what they're doing, like so there's a misconception somewhere.
Now, here's the craziest part is he said that he wanted a coach that's not afraid, right? He's making decisions based on whether the crowd's going to like it or what the media is going to say. And I can relate to this with that team that I talk about a lot, the Baltimore Ravens, because Harbaugh this year has been cowardice in some of his go for it on fourth down, when to run and pass. He's been gun shy to really make those gutsy calls in games that mattered. We've seen it. Jakob has talked about it. We've all talked about it here. And you can see that he's a little bit afraid or has fear of the result of quote unquote being that aggressive analytic guy, which is sad. So in a really roundabout, seemingly crazy way, I almost understand what he's saying. I just feel like he doesn't know how to say it in a way that's digestible for people. Like, without it being an absolute meme quote. I don't know, man. This whole broadcast was just nuts. And it's unfortunate that it happened during the game because I obviously wasn't going to watch it. But I got all the updates via Jacob's Twitter. And the people just absolutely lost it. It was phenomenal. There's obviously a lot of talk about the Rooney Rule situation here. The comments about Jim Irsay on the hiring as interim coach, as it's coming from Nate Atkins. Yes, it lines up with the Rooney Rule, and that set people off. Of course, there's conversations about whether the Rooney Rule is actually good or bad.
The quote that he had was it was so bizarre. Like, it was almost like a Trump quote where it's like you like say something and then you just say the complete opposite. Like, if you were to say, like, Trump would do this all the time. A lot of people do. I'm not saying he's like, I'm not truly comparing like him as a human to Trump. But if you're like politics, if you were to be like, are you eating pizza for dinner? And then I was to be like, well, I don't know what you're going to say about it, but yeah, I mean, it's bread and it's tomato sauce and it's some vegetables. There's some meat on it. I put on cheese. No, it's not pizza. And it's like, wait, but actually, like, it was like, they were like, are you following the Rooney Rule? And he's like, and he's just like, well, the problem is you guys. It's the media. It's perception. If you want to make it a thing, it's a thing. If you don't want to make it a thing, it's something. I have a journalism major too. It's like this complete random.
Yeah,
we're going to be following the Rooney Rule to a T. And it's like, what? What is this? Like, it's spun around in circles.
Exactly.
I mean, to be clear, the Rooney Rule does not apply to interim coaches. So you can hire an interim coach without conducting any interviews with African-American candidates. I think that the issues, of course, I mean, there's a perception issue, certainly, in the sense that they gave off a perception that they don't actually care about qualifications. And they just like went out and hired and airlifted somebody in over several well-qualified African-American candidates on their staff and non-African-American well-qualified candidates on their staff. And then, then they also give an answer. It's like the tone of the press conferences, the tone of the press conferences was not the tone of the press conference you would normally have for an interim coach, right?
Yeah.
It was not like, okay, we've promoted Bubba Ventrone to be the interim head coach and we wish him well the next 8 games and then we'll evaluate. It was like, this is our coach. We were thrilled he was willing to do this. We hope he's here for more than 8 games. This is the right man for the job. Like, it was all that, right? So yes, at the end of the season, they will have to, even if they want to continue with Jeff Saturday, they will have to hire an African-American candidate. It's just the tone of that interview gave it where unless it's a disaster with Saturday, that's the coach they want to have. And then it's like, do you want to just give somebody a sham interview? Like that's kind of the tone that was given off.
It was just an absolutely wild scenario, and I just feel like it's something we had to discuss: the good, the bad, the crazy, the criminally insane. It's really what it felt like. And I do want to shout out the press that was there, because they were relentless and there was no punches pulled. They just, I don't want to say like they attacked him and make that like a positive thing, but they went after him for answers, legitimate answers with legitimate questions. So I feel like that needs a shout out too, because I know, journalism gets shit on a lot, but all right, look, we're going to take a quick second. When we come back, we are going to do the not in my league, and we are going to talk about some absolutely washed quarterbacks. I can't wait for that. So sit tight. We'll be right back. There's fewer receivers that need a big week like Christian Kirk does. Christian Kirk needs a big week. He's been not so great as of late. Wide receiver 57, 15, 35, 93, and 46 in his last 5. However, let's talk some numbers, fellas. Christian Kirk against Vegas, who is allowing +7 points per game over their opponent's expected points per game allowed to slot wide receivers. Guess what? Christian Kirk runs 75% of his routes from the slot. Vegas, who ranks worse in schedule-adjusted fantasy points per game allowed to opposing wide receivers. They are, however, the 8th best against outside wide receivers at -4.2. What does that mean? What's the translation? They funnel targets to the slot. And I hope you guys played your Christian Kirk after the walkabout.
Great call.
Last Friday, finishing as the wide receiver 5 in, I guess, regular standard old PPR formats. And look, that's twice I've made Christian Kirk my budgie smuggler of the week with that extra comment. And in both games, he tore it up. Hasn't done much outside of those fucking games, it feels like. But target the slot matchups against the Raiders. It is hilariously opportunistic. All right, let's do not in my league. Look, every week we have 3 nominated players that are available in 50% of Yahoo leagues, and I get it. Your league is special. It's great. We're too smart. This doesn't happen in our league. Look, we don't care about that. This is the information that we're given. Under 50% rostered in Yahoo leagues right now in redraft. We're going to have 3 players. We've all blind bid on these players. Jacob is going to read off the winner, and we will decide who to remove from our 3-man roster if we win these players or if we want to keep them. Jacob, I believe you are in the lead in this game up to this point.
I am lucky enough. And as I've been saying, I'm just so egregiously far behind in the other game that I had to invent my own game that I could win. So that I would be able to have some sort of chance because I'm so incapable of picking players each week. But yes, our current rosters, I have Garrett Wilson, Deontay Foreman, and Kenneth Walker, who's basically why I'm winning this game. Tom has Nyheim Hines, Gus Edwards, and George Pickens. Billy has Khalil Herbert, Justin Fields, who put on an absolutely massive performance. I actually have not updated my sheet, so I think I'm still in the lead, but Fields might have actually sprung Billy into the lead with how massive his game was this week. So when I update my sheet after this week, I'll have an update for you by next week because that was absolutely ridiculous how big of a performance he had. Anyhow.
Set the quarterback rushing record in that game. Like,
insane. What a ridiculous performance. Anyhow, this week's nominations were Rachaad White and Jaylen Warren, both of whom got pretty bullish beat reports coming across the timeline early today about their potentially increasing role. And Mecole Hardman, who's basically the Adam Thielen of 2022, cannot stop scoring touchdowns.
Correct.
At all. And I will announce the winners.
So first off, we want to know the winner for Mr. Rachaad White.
The winner of Rachaad White was Tom, who bid $20. He only had $15, but that was still good enough. So
let's go.
He emptied the clip. He has Rachaad White. Would you like to eradicate
Nyheim Hines can get fucked.
So Tom's roster, which will be his roster for the rest of the year because he is now out of money, is Rachaad White, Gus Edwards, and George Pickens.
I got to go big. There's
You got to go
nothing left.
big.
I got to go big here.
You're going back to your roots. You're going big betting against Leonard Fournette.
Correct.
You've rediscovered yourself.
Sounds about right.
All right.
Hey, betting on him didn't work for me in the league of record. So whatever. All right, next up, we are going to go with Nicole Hardman, the winner of Nicole the Hardman sweepstakes.
Nobody.
Hey, how you doing? That's what's up. That's so funny. And the last player, I'll give you 1 second. The last player again was
Jalen Warren.
That's the one. Jalen Warren. The winner of the Jalen Warren sweepstake is Najee's ass is getting benched.
It was me for $1.
Hey,
$1.
that's actually really cheap, and I should have bid more on him instead of.
Yeah, but it's the issue. Then you have to get rid of somebody, and I didn't know who to get rid of. I was very confused. I decided to get rid of Deontay Foreman because Chuba Hubbard is coming back this week, and also Tom has no money left, so that means he can't claim Deontay Foreman, which will make him very sad. So for $1,
look, I'm writing, but to be fair, I'm writing out the Gus Bus. Writing against Leonard Fournette and no Claypool. So Pickens, please, for the love of God, be that elite player. Be that top 10 dynasty wide receiver that people said you were going to be after week 1. Please. That's what I want to see. That is not in my league. Absolutely love that. I would love getting my absolute ass handed to me on this one. Look, we're going to be right back. When we come back, we're going to talk about some absolutely washed up quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
Cannot wait.
Lastly, I just want to mention Kendre Miller. I feel like we could do an entire episode on the 2023 running back class and how great they are. Miller is another guy that gets lost in the depth of this class. I think most of them do have him as a second-round rookie pick at this point, but he's been incredible. His TCU Horned Frogs remain undefeated behind his 150 yards and a touchdown on Saturday. He's had a touchdown in every game this season, and he's ran for at least 100 yards in 6 out of his last 7 games. He just eclipsed 1,000 yards for the season. He's doing well enough catching the ball, but he'll get that third down work in the NFL thanks to his pass blocking. Only Blake Corum and Zach Evans have a higher PFF pass blocking rating in the 23 running back class.
That, of course, is Andy Starr, the Full Tilt Bevy Show, which you can catch tomorrow. He does a college football recap every week. You can watch that on Spotify. The video is playable on Spotify now for that show, so we've upgraded that content. If that's where you like to consume your content, you can watch that. It's very short. It's about 5 minutes recap. Nothing long, because again, we pump out so much content every week. We pump out 5 to 6 pieces of content on the podcast feed every week, and we love doing that. So we like to upgrade it for everyone a little bit. And of course, let us know wherever you're watching what you want to see, what you want to hear, what you want us to talk about. We take all of it into consideration every week. You guys have been phenomenal. Let's talk about some absolutely brutally washed quarterbacks. And of course, today, gentlemen, we have conversations about Mr. Thomas Brady, Matthew Stafford, and unfortunately for Billy, Aaron Rodgers, who is looking about as cooked can be. Jacob, you wanted to do this in analogy, so I
wanted to do the washed meter on these quarterbacks, and we can add Russell Wilson into this mix too, even though he had a bye. Let's not let him be forgotten about in terms of being washed. And I want you guys to trade back and forth. You can pick one. We can do this however you want to do it. And basically, I want you in real life terms to scale how washed you think one of these quarterbacks is. Okay, so I'll go first so that I can set the tone, right? And then you guys can understand sort of how this game's going to go here, just in case. And so I want
to make sure my analogies are going to work for this.
Okay, yeah, exactly, right. So I'll start. Look, I wouldn't want Billy to have to do this to himself. So I'll take pity on Billy. Well, you can also do the same one as me. It doesn't matter.
All right.
Okay. Aaron Rodgers is so washed that it's like when you're out, when you have a big trip and you go do an ayahuasca all summer long, right? And then you get home and you see your buddies and they're watching Cheech and Chong and you're like, oh man, like I need a good high. Does anybody have any ayahuasca? And it's like, no, they don't, because you're in like a suburb in Philadelphia or wherever you're at. And then you're like, well, I do have this like bowl of weed. And then you put in your bong and you finish the bong after you get through the bowl. And then you're like, okay, I got to clean this out. And you haven't cleaned it in like a year. And so you put that thing through the ringer. We're talking dish soap. We're talking scrubbing. We're talking there's fucking caked on tobacco that people were sticking in there when your buddies were over. You got to scrape that shit with steel wool. We got to get that shit pristine. We got to get that shit ready. He is so washed that he is like a washed out bong that you took, honestly, 48 hours trying to get clean after not having previously cleaned it out in 3 years.
Oh my God, that's really good. My analogies feel so short now, but I should have expected nothing less.
Shout out to the match game, Dad. I wasn't sure if anybody else would get the Aaron Rodgers is so washed. How washed is he?
Good call.
So good. Shout out, Dabs. We love that. Look, okay, I'll go Stafford. I'm gonna pick Matthew Stafford.
Oh yeah.
Matthew Stafford is about as washed as Steve Nash was when he joined the 2012 Los Angeles Lakers. Look, a perennial MVP candidate, absolutely lit it up on the scoreboard for so many years, and now it looks like he is just struggling to stay in the game more than ever. He cannot complete a pass to anyone not named Cooper Kupp and or Hate Crime Higbee. The offense looks inept, and he is so far gone from what we had hoped he would be in LA. Matthew Stafford is the 2022 version of the 2012 Steve Nash.
Oh, that's pretty washed.
That's super washed.
All right. I came up with a much different analogy for this.
Okay.
And now having heard yours, I think mine is really dumb.
Now we love it.
You're taking us in very different directions. I look forward to a third different direction here.
I'm not going to be able to get through this, and this is going to derail the show. I think all of these guys,
when was it railed?
I think all three of these players. I think all three of these players are washed like a hamburger that was cooked in the dryer.
That's good. I love that.
So, all right. I think I derailed Tom a little bit too much on that. So my argument with this is a lot of these players I think are still good. I think to an extent, maybe they're not who they were in their prime. They're still good.
This is denial. This is Aaron Rodgers denial.
Billy, if you ever serve me a burger that you cooked in the fucking dryer, if I see you, I'm gonna be pissed. Don't worry, it's still good.
So
to be clear, when you cook this burger in the dryer, does it go in raw or is this a pre-cooked burger?
Oh no, it's raw. It comes out like gray. It like smells like a dryer sheet.
No.
So I'm saying this because all three of these players, I think to an extent, are still good. Aaron Rodgers, not MVP candidate. More than happy to admit that. I have been annoying people at work with being like a rational Rodgers fan, where I'm like, hey man, a lot of good years of football, whatever. But I think all of these players have kind of done a magical way of ending up in the same place just through very different paths, where it feels like they all somehow ended up in this situation where, to an extent, the contributions of horrible O-line play or lack of targets and some varying like combination of those two has somehow resulted in all three of them kind of just looking rough. So like I said, I think if we were to take all these players out of their situation and put them in a good situation, like a grill, like a nice charcoal grill,
Oh
I think they'd all still be great. But instead, we're cooking them in the dryer.
Oh my god! That's went exactly how I thought it would go. All three of us completely different, but equally just phenomenal. I'll say that the only one that I think has any semblance of hope out of this is Tom Brady this year. Like their schedule for the remainder of the season, to get back a little bit into the actual fantasy aspect of this, their schedule is minty. They play Seattle, which has been a good point producer. Then they get a bye. Then they get Cleveland, New Orleans, San Fran's not great, Cincinnati completely depleted, and your playoffs: Cincinnati, Arizona, Carolina. I think that he's worth going and getting as cheap as he may
Sure, you get
be
him for a late too.
Exactly. And at this point, with that schedule, with injuries and buys, I think he's worth it. If there's one salvageable player out of those three, I think it is Brady.
So I think that Brady and Stafford, in particular,
Chris Matthew right here with the quote.
I don't know that either Brady or Stafford are actually that washed. Like, I think they're just on broken teams and they're no longer good enough to carry a team that's broken. Like, their offensive lines are so bad and they can't run the ball at all. And so, like, their entire offense just has to be them throwing within 2 seconds before they get sacked. And that's just, like, not an environment that they can handle because they also can't move. So, like, you're talking about immobile statues, you know, that are dealing with terrible O-lines and no running game. Like, I don't know. I think with Brady, it's like, obviously this is probably his last year. So that's just kind of, he's not going to be the elite option.
That's what's scary. But
with Stafford, like, I don't know. With Stafford, like, I think that if he's ever put in an environment again where he's still at this physical level, he could probably be fine. I have concerns about the elbow being a chronic issue. He's already 35. I mean, I don't imagine he's leaving the Rams anytime soon, and I don't see how the Rams get better anytime soon because fuck them picks. So, like,
this is it is so beautiful watching the Rams model fail. Like, they won the Super Bowl, they did it. The Rams might be in trouble for the foreseeable. Like,
they don't give a shit.
But it's so interesting. It's like they did win, and then everything's worth it. But it's like the discourse around the Rams would be so much different if they like. What if Stafford overthrows Cooper Kupp by 2 yards in last year's NFC Championship game? And
what
then,
if Joe
and then they
Burrow
lose that game, right?
What if Joe Burrow has another split second to get the ball to a wide open Jamar Chase, and that Super Bowl is over on the last play, and then they're left with nothing, and then they have this kind of season? Insanity.
I want to give Brady some props. I know he needs them. That guy needs more accolades than this random loser in Texas giving him some props. But I do want to shout out, I really don't think Brady has been horrid. I mean, he hasn't thrown an interception since week 1, and his wide receivers have had a very, 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 very bad case of the drops.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Impressively bad for how good that wide receiving core is.
I'm surprised Tom Brady didn't give Scotty Miller the same treatment that, like, I think it was Austin Collie got from Manning when he tried to catch it with one pass and he just pointed to the sideline. I'm surprised Scotty Miller in the end zone on Sunday when he dropped that potential game-winning touchdown, hit him in the face, and it fell to the ground, that Brady didn't just fucking point to get the fuck out of my sight. That was absolutely rude. But he's the QB 19 in points per game this year. And like I said, with the schedule he has and the receiving weapons coming in, but you're right, he has no offensive line. He's an absolute pylon. It's rough, but I think the schedule's worth it. You take a shot.
I think Brady is completely fine. I think his touchdown luck is atrocious right now.
Yeah.
I mean, Brady's on pace for 20 touchdowns? I don't think that's going to be.
I think he's fine. I just think he's fine in a way that's, like, not super actionable because I think that it's such a short-term proposition.
Yes.
And I think this is a redraft.
Like, I just think I just think, like, their team is, like, fundamentally broken. Like, and like, his touchdown rate will come up, but for him to get back to, like, a 40 touchdown pace, they need to be a good offense. And I just don't think, like, even if he's fine, I just don't know how they can be a good offense when their offensive line can't block anybody and they run for 2.5 yards a carry. Like, and I don't know what's going on with Chris Godwin. He's still getting the targets. It's on a way lower ADOT and he hasn't broken anything. Like, clearly he's like clearly healthy enough to contribute, but he's not Chris Godwin yet. Like, he's kind of like a little bit of a fake Chris Godwin right now. So I'm just not sure. Like they're really reliant on. It just seems like their offense is reliant on throwing 6 yards at a time.
7 receptions for 36 yards is
that's funny.
Fucking crazy.
In terms of redraft, I mean, knock on wood, knock on everything you own. If there's a crazy situation where a certain player is required to have Tommy John surgery, knock on wood, this is not happening.
Please no.
If that happens,
please no.
There is a very legitimate chance Tom Brady can fill in for the rest of the season, and you will never have a problem. Like, I think Brady, I mean, he doesn't have to get back to a 40 touchdown pace. If he has a 30 touchdown pace the rest of the season, with how much they're throwing the ball and his yardage, I think he's going to be.
And again, look, that schedule is so nice. It's so nice. He could score 3 touchdowns a game, and then all of a sudden your QB2 spot is absolutely solidified. Also, shout out Coach Bruce in the chat. Bruce. Gentlemen, great to see you. Great to see you too. Lucas, who's also on YouTube. That's what I was going to ask. What would you sell Brady for today on a mediocre team? I think a single second. Yeah, I think you're happy. If someone offers you 2/3, are you yeeting Brady off your team?
Yes. It depends on my team. If I'm
saying on a mediocre to bad, like mediocre. You're not selling Brady if you're.
I don't think I would.
Yeah, if I'm not going to the playoffs,
I don't think I'd sell for 2/3 today, but it depends on reading your league. Like, I don't know. I guess to me, it's a gamble, right? It's a matter of like, what do I think I can get in your league, and then what do I have to take at trade deadline, right? So it's like, do I think that I would want to push for a 2? I'd want to maybe do Brady and a 3 for a 2 or something like that. If you're asking me this question the day of your trade deadline, obviously you take 2/3. But I don't know.
That's what's important.
I mean, the thing is, quarterback injuries are so devastating, right? Like most teams in Superflex, a lot of teams in Superflex only have 2, or even if they have a third, the third is completely not unreliable, right? Like if you have, I have teams, all my Josh Allen teams are like probably projected for a bye because Josh Allen's fucking sick. And I think like 2 of them only have 2 quarterbacks. Like if Josh Allen is going to miss a couple weeks, I can stomach it. If Josh Allen's going to miss the rest of the season, obviously I'd be willing to give more than 2/3 for Tom Brady in that scenario. So like I don't know.
Also,
well, that's why when you say whatever I can get, that's why I had to ask. That's an actual offer I received a couple weeks ago, and I had turned it down on a brutal team. But I still am holding out hope for a decent game or 2.
Sorry, this is completely separate. I apologize for derailing.
No, that's what we do.
This report about Kenneth Walker this week, was that legitimate? That he might not be playing this week?
Oh, because of his like passport?
Yeah, he like doesn't have a passport to get to Germany or something. I do not know if this is legit.
Is that why his name is Walker? Because he can't fly anywhere?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Don't worry, I can fix this. So yeah, I think we need to real quick. Be prepared to not have Walker, maybe. I don't know if that was legitimate or not, but
it's legitimate enough for me to make a bunch of Travis Homer waiver claims, I guess.
Yeah, that's
anyway. Sorry, completely separate.
Can we talk about one last quarterback? Because I feel like this is the one that I'm actually kind of interested in acquiring, and it's Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I'm in on Russ.
Russell Wilson might be washed, but he's not Jamarcus Russell trying to come back as an offensive tackle washed. He's not there yet, but it's looking bad. But you can at least see a scenario where they're really good running back comes back healthy next year. They yeet this horrific experiment at coach, and they bring in, I don't know, Frank Reich to come in and coach the Denver Broncos. And now all of a sudden you're getting what they had really with Indianapolis, but with better wide receivers, arguably 2 years ago, with the running back, the receivers, the defense, and their draft picks that they've acquired. They could really do something with it. So I want to talk a little bit about Russell Wilson, what you're willing to pay to acquire him. I know, Jacob, you've got your ear to the ground, chiming in on those value streets.
Well, I bought Russ in a league that we're both in. I can share that trade.
Yeah, do that. Let's do that.
Yeah, so I sold Zach Wilson and a projected late 23 second for Russell Wilson and Amari Cooper. So I think that's a trade that essentially implies Russell Wilson to have value somewhere between a mid to late second or a third below Zach Wilson. Like, I think, because you're probably not buying Amari Cooper for a late 2. So in most places. So I think it's basically whatever extra you throw in that for Amari plus Russ for Zach Wilson. I'm pretty in on Russ. Now, to be clear, I don't think that deal's necessarily there everywhere. I sent out a lot of deals to try and buy Russell Wilson in the last couple of weeks. That's the only one that's actually been successful. So, you're getting some selection bias there. I would certainly be interested in buying Russ, though. Like, I think if you can, I'm not comfortable enough in him bouncing back to the extent that I would want to sell off like actually elite quarterbacks and then get a bunch of Russ plus, unless it's like just an obscene amount of plus.
Right.
But I think I would much rather take the bet on Russ, I think, than like a Zach Wilson or a Mac Jones or a Kenny Pickett. Like, I think if I could trade like the pocket quarterbacks that we're not sure are good for Russ, I'd be pretty excited about doing that. If you could get like Russ plus for Cousins or Carr, that would be really interesting to me. And then if you could just trade a position player for Russ for like a player who doesn't need Russ, that would be really interesting. I mean, I just think
I have
he's been
one
good
of
for
those
so
trades.
long. Okay, yeah, let's hear it.
So in a league where I desperately need another quarterback, especially with a certain quarterback, hopefully not, definitely doesn't need Tommy Juan surgery on that elbow. I needed a quarterback. I traded an injured Marquise Brown and a late 24 second and ended up acquiring myself Russell Wilson. And that's a point at a trade where I had a ton of depth at that position. I think Marquise Brown was my wide receiver 5 on the team. He was sitting in an IR spot, and I went, I'm going to have to do this. So, it's a little bit of a high value for what Russ has been, but it definitely is a little bit weighed in on a little bit of scenario, a little bit of what I think his value could come back as. So I think it's worth going and grabbing on a contending team, or like you said, a rebuilding team where you can kind of move a player that's maybe a little hurt, a little banged up, losing value, sitting on your bench to go and get him. Because if his value bounces back at all, like they get a big name hire, they draft someone really good, and Javonte comes back, I think you're going to sneakily see his value start to creep back up again. I think that's when you can use him to go and trade up for one of the runners.
Yeah, I think Russell Wilson is completely fine. Like I don't know as though he's going to be this guy who every year we're going, oh, he's a top 5 QB.
Right.
Like, I think we can all agree that's not who he's going to be. But I think Russell Wilson still legitimately has like 4 or 5 more years of QB 9 upside, probably like in that range. And that is like, if that is the case, now is the only time you're going to be able to buy him at this value until you're at the end of that. Like we're seeing on a guy right now who's on a new team for the first time in 10 years since he joined the league.
Yeah.
And I believe was Carroll always the head coach when he was in Seattle?
He was. Yeah.
Like this is his first time not
right
playing under Carroll. Nathaniel Hackett does not seem like he's going to have a job past tomorrow.
He's in over his head.
He's on a week-to-week basis.
Like there was rumors last week he was going to get fired if he lost to the Jaguars.
Yeah.
So like I think right now I'm more than happy to send an early 2 in 23 for Russ.
Oh, easily.
Like
I just get a late 1.
Easily.
I mean, there's no quarterback bet to me that's going to be available in the late 1. I mean, that's going to be a better bet than Russ.
Yeah,
that's important to note.
Right, like who's
going
to be a late 1? Like maybe Will Levis with mid first capital or something. Maybe if he, I don't know. I'd rather bet on Russ, I think, than Will Levis.
Yeah,
God.
If you're in a situation where you need a QB, which if you're in Superflex, you always are.
Right. Always useful, at least.
Fucking go get him, because I mean, who's been the last late QB to hit? Like,
I mean, Lamar Jackson.
Okay, cool. 5 years. All right, we got to go back 5 years.
I'm just saying. No, I think you're definitely right, and I think part of the reason too, with Russ, is he's become one of the most unlikable human beings on planet Earth, and Dynasty or just fantasy football players in general, when they latch on to that energy, they use that against him when he does play bad, and it kind of gets rid of some of the peripherals. So I think that that's something as fantasy players you also have to be really dialed into. But hey, that's some washed quarterbacks.
I mean,
we got some dope
and
now.
I keep saying with Russ is just like he looks physically fine, right? Like his ball still has zip. He's still moving fine. To me, it's like he's missing throws, like for lack of anticipation, and he's missing wide open people. I just don't think that you completely lose the ability to understand how to read a field at age 33. Like I just don't think that happens. So I don't see the type of physical decline that I see with like a Stafford.
Yeah.
The ball is still like the zip. He's not manning dead arm, right?
No.
Like he's not barely fighting off Brock Osweiler.
He's just playing like an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, again, part of the team is he's scrambling. There's always that classic thing, and it's a lot to do with baseball and a lot with basketball. It happens a lot where a player comes in and they try to do too much, and they're trying to do too much on every play. Like we all felt Hamler's pain. He's slamming his helmet and everything like that. I think there is kind of a learning period, and he's been so comfortable, and now former players are coming after him, and Richard Sherman's talking shit at the desk. He hears all of it. He consumes all of it. I think maybe mentally it's maybe broken him a little bit, and that's some hype. That's some like narrative street, I guess, if you want to walk down that, but it could be true too. So I think you're right. Investing. So from what I'm hearing, yeet Stafford, yeet Rodgers, ask about Brady, and go and acquire Russ. I think those are the 4 takeaways mostly we can take away from that. Look, we're going to take a quick step back. When we come back, we're going to do player picks, underdog picks, and get the hell out of here. So Jake can go record a 4-hour-long podcast where
it might be even longer than usual tonight with the Colts talk.
Sweating Bullets is going to be 4 hours with the Colts talk, and Drew trying to force Jacob to bend the knee versus Gabriel Davis. I can't wait for another.
Everyone was shocked that a extremely volatile wide receiver is having an extremely volatile season.
Yeah, you were not so in the neutral territory when he was popping off.
You can roll the clip. Like I literally said then, roll the fucking clip. I was like, I guarantee you there's going to be weeks where he's going to have 2 for 30 and then people are going to be like, oh no, he's bad. Like these are those weeks.
I know. I love your guys' arguments on Sweating Bullets.
If Allen actually has a UCL tear, like Gabe is dead.
Yeah.
I mean, like he's like Diggs, I mean, he's not going to be as good, but he's still going to be fine. Gabe will be absolutely DOA if Allen's out.
According to all news I see on Allen, he should be fine.
Yeah, and I love that we didn't even have time to talk about Najee or time to talk about Josh Allen, but oh my God, those are conversations we could have. Look out for those on the walkabout on Friday, because we are for sure going to get into that. All right, here's a quick clip. When we come back, we're going to do our player picks and our underdog picks. Let's go. Since Hawkinson got yeeted to the Vikings, Jameson Williams has already gone up in value without even practicing yet. It's incredible. Through 8 weeks of the season, he's currently sitting ahead of Chris Godwin, Brandon Ayuk, Gabriel Davis, but he's currently sitting ahead of Chris Godwin, Brandon Ayuk, Gabe Davis, Hollywood Brown, Treylon Burks, and Jahan Dotson, 2 other rookie wide receivers who've already played and showed elite. Well, less Burks, but Dotson has shown elite playmaking ability already, and Jameson Williams has yet to play, yet to practice, yet to do anything, and he's already gaining and accruing value. That is absolutely incredible. Considering JMO was a prospect that you were either in on or on, already keep trade cut. He's already climbing into like the top 20 rankings. It's kind of goes to show a lot about the status of how the Lions are perceived at this point. For once, Detroit Lions fantasy football players. It's absolutely crazy. Every week we play this game, but Jacob is currently getting absolutely murked in. He is coming in last in this one. 15, an RB out of the top 16, a wide receiver out of the top 24, and a tight end outside of the top 10. We pit them against each other. We total up the points from those players. And at the end of the year, we haven't quite decided what the punishment's going to be, but the winner will get
Jacob's doing it.
Some decision. Yeah, Jacob's definitely going to be definitely going to be involved. So right now, Billy is in the lead barely at 4.
It is so funny. This looks like our scores look like tight end of the year rankings, where it's like, oh, look at Kelsey up at 453 points. Oh, look at Andrews up at 450.
I'm Zach Ertz.
Oh,
yeah.
There's Pat Fryermuth rocking a cool 308.
Yeah, absolutely. So Billy's in the lead with 453.88. I am in second with 451.88. Oh my God, a 2-point difference. And Jacob coming in last at 308.42. You just keep picking players that don't play. It's absolutely crazy. Billy, why don't you kick us off for this week player picks?
Yeah, it's funny to kind of just spend so much time talking about Stafford as the burger and the dryer. Stafford's my QB pick. Easy. He's playing Arizona. I think Arizona is bad, and I think Stafford's going to be good enough to take advantage of that.
That's a good thesis.
I also got Jeff Wilson Jr. Look, he looked good. He looked real good. And I think he's just going to have every opportunity for Miami, even if he's splitting work with Raheem Mostert. I mean, just in terms of touchdown efficiency, I think he's going to be great. Rondale Moore continues to take over more of the Arizona role. And with Hopkins consistently going to be covered by Jalen Ramsey, I'm more than happy to take Rondale Moore. I'm betting on this game being a shootout. I hope this game is a shootout. I think Rondale's going to have a great time. And finally, rounding it all out, I'm taking K. Dotton for Tampa Bay. Consistently looks good. He seems like he's kind of moving into like the Pat Fryermuth territory from last year, where he just looks like this kind of good guy of the second tier of tight ends that isn't Trey McBride or Dulcich. Speaking of Trey McBride. But K. Dotton has just looked really good, and he seems like he's one of the few people that Brady can really count on. So I'll take
game winning like last second touchdown. That's trust from Brady. So I actually like that lineup.
Yeah.
I'll go next. My lineup actually makes me really sad because this is a lineup that you would have felt like really good about at draft season, and now they are outside of all of these qualifiers. So depressing. I'll take Derek Carr. He's playing against Indy, and well, Indy's a fucking mess. We talked about that. So I'll take him. I'll take DeAndre Swift, which might be one of the last times he's ever at this point. He went down on the 1 yard line, was the difference of him having a
and immediately they're like, get the fuck out of there, man. It's time for Jamal.
He tripped. He went down on the 1. However, went down on the 1. I didn't say, I just say he tripped, but down on the 1, rotten luck. That's the way it is. They're already talking about getting him more. His matchup is minty against the Bears. I'll take Swift. Jerry Jeudy is popping up in my wide receiver
player.
He had a.
You're a well-known Jerry. Tom Lee. Tom Lee is Tom Lee on the show.
This is Lucas. I'm repping Lucas right now. But
right. Lucas actually likes Jeudy. Tom Lee like drafts Jeudy in every league, and then he's always like, I don't know like Jeudy. I'd like to sell some Jerry Jeudy. He drafted this guy, and he's like, yeah, but I just felt like he was falling too far. And it's like, well, you have him in every league.
Yeah. Phenomenal. The former potential top 5 upside for, as Jacob stated, might have the opportunity in the second half of the year. I'll take Jerry Jeudy here in this spot. He's low enough. I like it. And I will take the false tight end 1 coming into the season, Dalton Schultz. With Dak back, he has done pretty okay. I mean, I just need enough points to catch Billy. So I'm hoping Schultz scores a touchdown, and I'm happy. So my line will be Carr, Swift, Jeudy, and Schultz. Again, this would have looked really fucking good on draft day. This is a depressing lineup. Jacob.
Yeah, man. I will be taking, I mentioned, I think he's still okay. I'll take Russ Wilson. I'm hoping that he used this bye week to do some extra high knees to learn the playbook, etc. But we play the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans are a complete funnel defense. Well, they have one of the best run defenses in the NFL, and they have not a very good secondary. We saw that the Chiefs essentially just abandoned the concept of a handoff on Sunday Night Football. And we've certainly seen other teams that have had to act accordingly. The Titans currently have the lowest rush rate over expected among any team. So teams are playing the Titans. They know what to expect. They know that you can pass on them, you can't run on them, and they are game planning accordingly and throwing on them. So I expect a high volume game from Russell Wilson. I also like the Jerry Jeudy call for that reason. My running back pick is Kraft Singles, Devin Singletary. Naeem Hines was brought into much fanfare. He basically didn't play this week. I imagine that he will eventually take over James Cook's role, although I mentioned this last time. I wonder if his acquisition was maybe a little bit more about special teams than people think. Either way, I do think that Devin Singletary's role is still going to be quite strong. And especially if you either get a limited Josh Allen or no Josh Allen, they're going to have to lean on their running game more than the Bills typically do. And when they run the ball, they want to run the ball with Devin Singletary, not one of their puny little midgets, James Cook and Nyheim Hines.
Okay.
They want to use their slightly larger midget, Devin Singletary. My wide receiver pick is Brandon Ayuk. The San Francisco 49ers play against the Los Angeles Chargers, and their horrendous defense that has been bad against the run and the pass all year. I expect Deebo Samuel will be playing this week. However, he might still be limited. We're unsure. Brandon Ayuk has carved out a really nice roll up, over 20% target share his last few weeks. And then I will play Tyler the Hate Crime Higbee as my tight end. The Arizona defense has been horrendous against tight ends all year long. Look, I think this is the week, man. I mean, I'm not going to come close to getting out of last place, but I'm going to call my shot right now. I'm guaranteeing a weekly victory. I'm guaranteeing that I'll have the highest score this week. We went in the lab. We spent like 5 minutes looking at the Fantasy Pros site. I've got this week.
You've been in the lab with a pen and a pad. He's trying to get this damn label
with a pen
off.
and a pad.
I absolutely
Scratch
love
check
it.
time. Look, we have been in the bottom quartile of the bottom quartile of the bottom quartile of pickers. But it's time for us to get into the upper quartile of that upper quartile.
I can't fuck it. That's such a.
I don't have fear
quote.
anymore. I'm not listening to analytics.
Oh, hey, clip that. We're clipping that forever.
I finally ditched analytics.
Oh my God, phenomenal! And look, again, we said we are partnered by Underdog. Every week we give you 3 picks from Underdog that you can use. Play along with us. Remember, if you lose with us, just remember all those times you've won with us as well. We're losing when you're losing. That's how it works. We enter these in, all 3 picks. We enter these in to win some money. So, guys, I'm going to start us off. Look, Cordero Patterson came back. It was an absolute baller. They once again get the Carolina Panthers. This is on Thursday night. I'm taking the over on Cordero Patterson's total 63.5 rushing and receiving yards. Right now, I feel like that's just an absolute easy cash in for easy money. I am taking the over on Cordero Patterson. Jacob?
I am sticking with that Thursday night game. And look, I have more than given up on this former flame of mine. But at least for this week, I'm getting back to being interested. Over the last 3 weeks, he's ran 96%, 95%, 97% of the routes. His target share has been up at an average of 20% over the last 3 weeks. On an ADOT of nearly 15, he's seen 36%, 21%, and 37% of his team's air yards. That's barely behind DJ Moore. Terrace Marshall gets to play the worst secondary in the NFL, the Atlanta Falcons, on Thursday night. And it is Terrace Marshall's season. I'm taking his over 36.5 receiving yards.
I love that one. Billy?
Yeah, so this is great because Jacob very clearly did not look at the show sheet.
Oh, did you take Marshall?
I had already written Terrace Marshall over 36.5 receiving yards.
Hey, it'd be way worse if you took under. Like I would just be actively undermining you.
That's true.
No. It's great. You're not actively undermining me by just
it's a good
throwing
thing
it away anyway.
You're the smartest of the bunch, so you can easily pivot with your big brain decisions there, Billy.
Yeah. I'm totally not talking more and being more upset about this so that I can find a new one.
We're not killing time. We would never. Okay, the integrity of the program would never be compromised by stalling for time for unprepared.
I had no idea that you were picking.
Look, and it was so great. I had this great bit. I've gone like 4 or 5 in a row, and I've nailed them all. And I was finally going to put all that trust on the back of Terrace fucking Marshall. And Jacob takes that chance away from me. So I'm going to take one that is not currently on Underdog. But I do not care what the line is. This is going to be put in. I don't care what the line is. Whatever the under is, I want the under of the Titans quarterback passing yards against the Denver Broncos. I don't care if it's Tannehill or Malik Willis. I don't care what the line is. They can make it 60 yards. I'm taking the under on that.
You're
So,
taking the under on whoever the starter is.
Titans
for the
QB
Titans.
passing yards.
I like it.
All right, so we're taking the over on Terrace Marshall. We're taking the over on Cordero Patterson's rushing and receiving, and the under on whoever is throwing the ball for the Titans. Remember, you can go to Underdog if you haven't played before. Use promo code FULLTILT, FULLTILT, and you can get your deposit matched up to $100. Phenomenal program, great show, ton of great moments. Jacob, final thoughts before we get the hell out of here?
Again, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, on iTunes, because we are in the upper quartile of the upper quartile of the upper quartile of Fantasy Football Podcast.
Oh, my God. I fucking love that. Billy?
Yeah. I was right all along about the Seattle backfield, and I was right about Justin Fields, too.
Okay. love you taking that opportunity to take back your L's. We love that here on this program. My final thoughts are always the same, but
Never admit defeat.
Never admit defeat. Never give up and never surrender. My final thoughts are the same, but I want to mention this. Like you said, you want to be subscribed. You want to be notified on everywhere that you're listening. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, on YouTube, Stitcher, wherever you get your Full Tilt content, you're going to want to be subscribed. And again, comment. Let us know what you want to hear. If you're not hearing it already, we'll make that happen for you. The offseason is going to be absolutely crazy again. We're hoping to rope in another absolutely insane lineup of guests. Going to use all of Jacob's big brain Twitter army to help make that happen. It's just going to be phenomenal. A great time. You're not going to want to miss it. Of course, it is November. The mustache is in. Jacob's is getting there. You can go to Movember.com, look up the Full Tilt Pod Network, donate there. It means a lot. The link will be in our Bitly, which is in the profile on Twitter at Dynasty Tilt and at Tom's Tipple FF. Please, every little bit helps. It's important to remember mental health and men's health is very important. That's what this month is all about. I also want to remember to tell you to check on your loved ones. Tom Lee was in a league. He had a guy not setting his lineup for multiple weeks. I think Tom Lee or Billy, either way, didn't set the lineup for multiple weeks, and it made people really upset, and people were starting to get into an uproar. And then we had found out that that fantasy player had lost his battle with cancer. So you never know, man. You never know what someone's going through on the other side. Remember, there's people on the other side of the screens. Whoever you're playing with, whoever you're in the DMs arguing with, just remember there's a person on the other side. Other than that, in a more positive note, remember that the Full Tilt W podcast goes live tomorrow. The Fantasy Walkabout goes live on Friday. You can catch me Sunday with Chase Vernon doing the start and sit show for Fantasy Adventure. Remember that clear eyes and full hearts can never lose your best days. Well, they're always spent tilting. Good night, everybody. Love this fucking show. Hey, if you're stuck around, thanks for watching the Full Tilt Dynasty Network. Look, we absolutely couldn't do this without every single one of you guys. We have more content coming into you live, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, you name it. We're going to be there with you all season long. Stay locked in. Remember to hit the notification button. Get notified every time we go live or post a video. You're not going to miss it. Get in on the Discord. You can find that over there on the YouTube page as well. Good night, everybody.